Okay, everybody, welcome from the beautiful Ames Public Library Rotary Room. We are here today to learn more about what's going to happen in the 2026 legislative session. I'm Ann Kinzel, co-president with Carolyn Klaus. We have a nice full room here, and we see we have quite a few people online. Amy Campbell from the Campbell Patterson Consulting Firm and our lobbyist is here today to give us all that we need: advocacy, information, and resources. Thank you, Amy.
Hey, thank you. So we want we want to do today is just help you find how you can keep track of what's going on during the legislative session, what resources the league and the legislature have to be able to find that information. I have always lived by the Dalai Lama's rules in many ways, but one of his 18 tenets of good living is to know the rules well so you can break them effectively. And I think that's really important in the legislative session. And of course, Pablo Picasso probably took a little angle on that. He probably said it first, but learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. But I am going to tell you the rules, but then there's always a way around the rules, right? There's always a way. So even if a bill didn't make a funnel, there's always a way to get it coming back to life. Where there's a will, there's a way. And unfortunately, in this world, we seem to set rules and then decide they don't work for us, whoever's in the majority, and then decides, well, we're going to find another way around those rules. So when we talk about advocacy, it's important that the three things that are the most important in advocacy are knowing the process, building the relationships, and becoming a resource to your legislator so that when Senator Quernbach has a question, he knows definitely he's going to go ask Barb or someone else in the league and say, what does the league think about that? You want to be in that position, but we're focusing today on that process. And you guys have seen this before because I've been up here a couple times, but it's the key ingredients of advocacy. This is an old cartoon from an Arizona newspaper. It shows what the legislator introduced a bill, how they introduced it. The next one is how the committee reported it, how the House amended it, how the Senate amended it, how it passed into law, how the agency understood it, what the budget allowed, that's for sure, and then what the taxpayer wanted. So it's super important that we focus on advocacy in terms of education. You guys do that also well. So I posted this here just so you have a few resources to look at, but I wanted to call attention to two really important places, and I'm going to switch over to my to our website. This is our website, and that is the IA Lobby bill tracker. So I wanted everybody to know that we do have a bill tracker. If you can't remember how to get to it, you can always go to ialobby.com, and then that is our website, and there's the bill tracker tab at the front. It's not much longer to go directly to the leagues. It's ialobby.com/bill tracker /LWVIA. So that's what you're going to get. But if you can't remember it and you go here, you just drop down to this is all of our clients and to the League of Women Voters. There's also a link on the website. This is the tracker we keep in place for the league. So any bill that we've flagged of interest to the league, anything we're registered on for sure is going to be on there. We might also have things we're just tracking. So they're in the legislature. There's three ways that we can register. We can register in support of a bill, we can register against a bill, or we can register undecided. Undecided does not really mean you're undecided. It might mean you're undecided. It might mean parts of the bill you like, parts of the bill you don't like, because there's no other way other than for or against. It could also mean we're watching this and we want to let people know the league is interested in this bill, but we don't really have a position on it, but it's important to our members. So it might be that. So that would be what undecided is. You will also see us just write track on there. So it'd be for, against, undecided. Those are the registrations. And then track is just, we don't really want to put our name up on it, but we don't want to lose sight of this bill, where it's going. And those decisions are usually made in conjunction with the League of Women Voters president or advocacy chair, whichever. Lately it's been Therese Grant. Whenever I would have questions, I would email her last session and say, how should we register on this bill, or should we register on this bill? And so that is made, sometimes it goes to the board, the entire board, if it's a controversial enough issue, or it's something that's not really readily apparent with our legislative issues and with all of the research position papers that have been done. If you ever have a question of why the league is registered in a certain way or another, you can contact Craig or I, and I'll leave our emails at the end, or you can ask the president why the league is not taking a position on a particular issue. Sometimes it's simply because the bill's not going anywhere, and why waste any effort or time on it? It was tricky when there was a bill to physically castrate rapists this year. And the question became, do we even bother registering on that? Not the league, but I have the Coalition Against Sexual Assault. Like, do I even register on that? Well, they decided to have a subcommittee. So of course I had to register on it, but it was one of those things like, can we just let this go and just not waste any energy on it? But since they had to have a subcommittee on it, it wasn't the Senate, the House did that. And it didn't go anywhere. But so one thing to note on this, you can export it into an Excel format. So if you want to have your own Excel spreadsheet of it, you can do that. If you have a league meeting and you just want to print off a list of the bills, then you can edit it however you want to. You can also organize it by topic. So I have it organized by topic right now. So all the budgets are together. Why is this not working? Nope. There we go. So that's budgets. And these right now, since the session is done, these are all the active bills, meaning they were signed or vetoed by the governor. So that is the status of all of those. If you want to look at bills that were introduced that are going to carry over into next year on our bill tracker, you can just switch to inactive on there and hit search, and then it'll show you all the bills that are somewhere in process, didn't pass this year, but are still going to be alive for next year. We will make those live at the beginning of session again. If you want more information on it, all you need to do is, let's go to this human trafficking definitions, click on it, and it'll open up and show, well, it's not a very good definition, but let me find one that's a little further in the process. So this will have the definition in a little more depth. It'll have, this one has a link because there was a publication that was developed since it had it was a tax issue that you can read done by the fiscal staff. This shows you the current status of where it's at. So it's on the Senate floor. You can see it passed. This is real time recent actions. Those automatically are updated as the website updates. So they are absolutely current to the minute that the website is updated. When you see SJ or HJ, that is House Journal or Senate Journal, and that is the official place where it is recorded. So like if there was a vote, like this committee report, if you hit SJ, it would go to that part of the journal where it would have the committee vote, so you could see how the vote was. It also has our position. So I guess instead of track, we changed it to watch. So we're just watching that. The subject matter, when it was last modified, and then a link to the actual bill. So that'll be on every single one, whether it's on the active list or inactive list. You can also, if you want to search by position, you can search it by the bills that we support, the bills that we oppose, in that way. Wow, we supported a lot more than I thought.
So Amy, are you on active or inactive?
Right now I am on inactive. You can do both, like that would be all, or just active. And as I mentioned, active during session would mean they're currently alive. So after we get to the deadlines and bills die, we'll move them to inactive. So it's still, we didn't like to use the words live and dead. The dead part was kind of like nothing's ever dead. So that's why we did active and inactive. But um, you can also sort by bill number or title of the bill. And also, if you guys ever see something that the bill tracker that you would wish it would do that it's not doing, please let us know. Because every 2 years we go back and make adjustments to it with our contractor, our website host, and we've made changes to make it easier and more readable. So if there's ever something, also this little thing, the view accessible version, we realized with some screen readers that it wasn't working for those that have sight impairments. So we had our contractor work on an accessible version. It was the only way they couldn't make this whole thing the way it was accessible, but they did make a version of it accessible. So if you ever have somebody that's using a screen reader or on that, then they know they can use the accessible version of it. We try to use plain language so that it is readable to everyone. The other thing I wanted to point out is I work also with the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council, which has an advocacy network of individuals with disabilities, and they have produced, if you go to their website, iowaddcouncil.org, which is on those links that I had on the PowerPoint, if you go to InfoNet or I think publications, you can find who represents you. And the URL is really easy. It's just Iowa DD Council, who represents you there. And we have this guide and it's really good. It has all of your, it's also in Spanish, but they, as you know, the federal government does not exactly love DEI right now. And so they restricted the DD Council's budget from being able to translate the new version of the guide into Spanish. So we have the old version of the guide in Spanish, which is great for if you have somebody that needs to know process, but I couldn't get the funding to be able to make the new version in Spanish, which is fine because I've had to update this about a dozen times with all the special elections that are going on. And so this is a really good guide. It actually, we added congressional this time. So the whole first part of it is on the congressional process of bills, and the difference between Congress and legislature, because I know you guys know that, but this population did not. It also has what your member of Congress can do for you, the congressional maps, and then a little bio and contact information for each of the congressional members. And then we go into the legislative process. Then it goes into the legislature, explains the legislature, but I think the really important piece to this are the legislative bios. So there's also the difference between study bills and House files and Senate files. Does everybody understand the difference between those two? So in Iowa, we have two types of bills, a study bill and a file, a House file or Senate file, and a House study bill or a Senate study bill. House files are sponsored by somebody. So either a legislator has put their name on it, or a committee is the sponsor. A study bill is requested either by the governor, an agency, and that's before session starts. They submit bills that become study bills, or a committee chair. So it doesn't actually bear the name of a legislator. It bears the name of the committee chair the committee who requested it. And it's intended for some of those bills that you may not want to have your name attached to, but you want to have somebody have the discussion about it. So you might not personally agree with this bill as the committee chair, but you think that there ought to be a good discussion about it. So that's kind of the rationale behind it. Is that correct or ish?
Yeah, ish.
least that's the original intent of it.
A study bill is filed by a committee chair.
Yeah.
Usually if you like an idea, it's a good thing when it's filed as a study bill, because it means that the committee chair probably supports it.
Yeah.
And that's a huge advantage in committee.
Yeah, I was also thinking about like the bottle bill when they dismantled the bottle bill. The committee chair at the time, and he felt like, let's introduce all of the ideas as a study bill. I don't agree with some of them, but I'm going to introduce it all because I think this issue needs to be addressed. So you had like the full range of options. And when they had subcommittees, they started talking about the whole range of options. Soon it narrowed down to what it became. But it also has a timetable. But I think the important part here for you guys is you can, I know I'm going fast through this, but trying to get to the page. The maps, it actually has each legislator, their home address, their phone number, their legislative email, and their personal email. And all of this came from Secretary of State filings or their website. So it was all publicly available information. I'm not giving away anybody's cell phone number that hasn't already produced it somewhere else. Usually that's their cell phone number. Can't guarantee that in all positions, but it's nice if you don't know all the legislators and you want to take a look at who they are and what kind of makes, see if they have some connections, like maybe you go to the same church or you went to the same college or something like that. But I just wanted to show you that resource because it is a really nice resource that you can go to. It's publicly available on their website. You can have it, you can download it. I'm working on developing an app. I'm trying to find a intern that can do that to make it an app so that it's a lot more accessible to people. So, some good tech interns, let me know.
The study bills you're talking about have to come from the legislative side. When the governor does something like the Doge committee thing, that's truly from the governors. The legislature has nothing to do with it.
Correct. That was a executive order that she created, that Doge. And they will give her their recommendations. And I would expect, if this is part of her package of what she's going to ask for next year, that they would be drafted into bills. And in that particular case, I'm working on an article to post on our league blog. I feel like those recommendations were very aspirational, not very actionable. So I don't know how it's going to look like when it becomes a bill. They kind of hedged their bets on changing IPERS. So backwalked a little bit. So it almost sounded like in their last meeting that they were going to look at doing some kind of more in-depth review over giving people the choice of a different plan. I know I can't think of the words right now. Defined contribution. We just talked about it, Ann, and I already lost. So I'm going to go through these links. I just put these links into the PDF for those that want to have it later, but I'm going to go to the legislative website real quick. Oh no, I meant to show you the League of Women Voters. Does everybody know we have a policy blog that replaced our newsletter so we could post more frequently? So the policy blog is right up here on top of the League of Women Voters of Iowa website. And that is where I put the PowerPoint for this. It is where I post things like Axios did a really good article on water quality, and I thought everybody should take a look at it. So I posted it there. I have our wrap up. I've been posting that as things happen at the Capitol rather than saving it all up to the end of the month to send out, so that it's more frequent. This year, we are going to look at doing a monthly call where people can join in during the session and just ask questions. So we're working on that right now, on timing of that, and knowing that some of you have your forums on Saturdays or Fridays. Some have them on Fridays. So we'll try to figure out a time that works that we could do that, and just kind of a call-in time. So if you have questions, we felt that the combination of the blog and that might be a little more helpful to people. So I wanted everybody to remember that there is that policy blog to check in on and see how things are going. I post throughout the year, but mostly during session, I try to do it at least 3 or 4 times a month. So as things break. So now I'm going to go to the legislative website. For those of you that might want to see first thing is you probably want to see what's happening every day, right? You want to know where to find the information. And I'm going to tell you that the fastest way to get information is to go to, I think it's under publications, and over here, you're going to find subscriptions. We went to the legislative website and clicked on the publications and subscriptions. And this is where you can sign up to get direct alerts on anything that you want. So my advice is, if you don't want your email cluttered, create a separate Gmail account or something, a free email account, and sign up with that. So you have all of your information going into that, because it's a lot of information. Like, I subscribe to everything. So I get all the committee stuff. I get all of the rules stuff. I get everything, but you get to choose. So you can subscribe to rule changes if you're following the administrative rules process. We'll talk about the Bills and Rules Watch here in a second. The capital notification system is things like we have a fire drill. You probably don't care about that. Committee subscriptions is important. If you're wanting to watch what's going on in a particular committee, maybe transportation is a big issue for you, or natural resources, environment is, you would pick those committees that you want to have. Again, I pick them all, and it's a lot, but you'll get committee notices. You'll get meeting notices. Anything the committee sends out, you'll get as well at the time that it's sent out. You can also get department subscriptions. So if Health and Human Services is filing a report, you'll get a notice of that. If you click on it, oh, well, it's not going to let me because I have to sign in then. But you know that you can, like, this is the committee subscription one. So I can pick which ones I want. Appropriations.
And do we pick and choose like a menu?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you can change it anytime. Again, I just really, you want to follow the advice of having your own separate email, because I really wish I had done that when I set it up. For many reasons, I think of that as well. Legislative subscriptions. So that's where you're going to get like clip sheets. That is where amendments every day are filed. You're going to get the bill, the calendars, any kind of notices of meetings in general. You'll get all of those. Debate eligibility calendars. I'm going to go over what all of these are, but that's where you're going to get the functions of the legislature coming to you in that. So I would really just take a look through the subscription section. Also, we can come back to this, but Bills and Rules Watch. This is where you can actually you'll sign into the system. So you'll get an email, you'll use your email, and they'll give you a password, and then you can track your own bills. So if you don't want to track all of the things that are in the League of Women Voters bill tracker, you can add 4 or 5 of them in your own personal tracking system, and then you will get notices every time something happens on that bill. So it's a really great resource that wasn't available when we created our bill tracker, but for a citizen who's watching a handful of bills, it's really nice, so you don't have to keep digging around the website to get it. You know that those will come in. And it will, if you click on it, it's going to have you sign in. I don't know if it will do it, since I have a lobbyist sign in. We'll see. Oh, yeah. So it'll let you pick certain bills. So these are rules and things that I've been looking for, but you can subscribe. So I would play around with that. If you end up having questions about it, let us know. Chances are I'll have to probably mess around with it too, because I don't use that, but I think it's a really good resource for citizens who are watching bills if you don't want to have to do a lot of extra work. Since we're under publications, I'll just stick with that. There are also some great resources related to budgets that you can find here. So under fiscal analysis, this is one of the most important things I use is what's called a NOBA. This is the appropriation bill analysis. It stands for Notes on Bills and Amendments, NOBA. And anytime there is a budget bill or a bill that has a fiscal impact, that has come out of committee, I think it has to come out of committee before they do it now. Unless it's a budget bill that they're actively looking at. These are great. They provide you, I'm going to pull up the rural healthcare one. So this is the final one, but it will tell you a bill summary and then information on new programs. But then once you get into the bill, it'll actually, let me get down here. It'll actually have the bill on the left-hand side. So that is the bill language where you see Division 1. And on the other side is an explanation from the fiscal staff. So it basically explains what this is. So you might not know when it says under Section 4 that these sections are struck. I would have to go back to look at the code to see what they're striking, to know what they're striking. But here, the staff have already done that for you and tell you that it's repealing this program. So I love the NOBAs, and that is like one of my favorite things to use. I use them during budget time all the time. They will have one that comes out for when the governor's budgets are announced. They will have it by budget category, and then they'll have the preliminary one as they start to mark up the budgets. And then you'll have, as it goes through every step, every time it passes another chamber, they'll have another one. So you can compare the House and the Senate one if you want to. They're just a great resource. So I think that's one of the things that I use the most. And you can see there's a lot of them here. This is just from this session. They're by date, so you can find the most current ones. Some will say final, some will say Senate subcommittee, House subcommittee. So it's a great resource, and they do a wonderful job doing that. Where the governor's budget is this annual state budget analysis, and that is where you're going to see what the governor's recommendations were based on it. Now, when they first come out, they come out as a preliminary analysis. And then a few days later, it becomes with the analysis. And if you want to look at department budget requests, you can do that too. So that's all the governor's budget. They don't usually get acted upon. The legislature always starts their own budget. I mean, they might incorporate things that are in the governor's budget, but I think those are the things that I use the most. These are post sessions. So if you want to go back and look at the end of session, a summary of the legislation that's passed. A nice thing is it's every year. So you can go back and say, what year or what did they do in 2015? Or what was the budget like in, you can go back and look historically too. And that's the same with the fiscal services. They have all kinds of different tracking. I don't use that much, to be honest. The thing I use the most is really the NOBA appropriation bill analysis, and the subscriptions are really vital. You can also look at AG opinions on here. So if you want to, sometimes there's some significant AG opinions that you want to look at. But that's under publications. Does anybody have any questions about publications before I go to like the calendar? I'm going to go over to this House and Senate.
You've been talking all under the umbrella publications.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
They would like you to repeat the questions.
Oh, sorry. So the question was if everything that I just went through was under that publications tab, and yes, it is. Yeah. Were there any in the chat? No? Okay. All right, well, I'm going to go back to schedules, and they're mainly, even though it says committees and schedules at the top of that tab, the schedules are really under Senate and House. So, this is where you find, I think this is probably one of the page that I use, the absolute, that and the legislation page I use the most. So under schedules, on the front page, you can also find the session calendar. That's session timetable. So that's what tells you the day they start, when the first funnel is, when the second funnel is. So if you click on it, they do have 2026 up now. So you can see that we start January 12th. Because it's a short session, the 90 days or 100-day session, they only have a week to draft bills, individual sponsored bills. So if you want a legislator to file a bill for you, you have to have them ask for it by January 23rd. Doesn't have to be filed by then, and you just have to ask for it by then.
Did you find that under the schedules tab?
Under House and Senate. Yeah. So where it says committees and schedules, that's most of the schedules are under Senate and House. So if you see that, and that's where you're going to see, if you go down, you see the calendar. You can look at old ones, and I'll tell you why I use the old ones. Sometimes I'm trying to plan capital days, and you have to plan them a year in advance to request the rotunda, exactly 1 year in advance at 6 a.m. in the morning. And I want to avoid a funnel week, and I don't in my brain remember that it's the end of the 5th week is the first funnel, or the end of the 10th week is the first funnel. So I'll go back and look at the old ones to know what the rules were for it, but you probably won't need to do that unless you're planning ahead. But they usually get the session schedule out July-ish of a year, so you've got pretty good warning. Of course, all of this can change if they decide to change their rules, because this is all governed by rules. I think the only time they've ever really done that has been when we were in a fiscal crunch and they had to shorten the sessions to 90 days, and they had to accelerate the funnel deadlines. So I think that's the only time I remember them changing the actual funnel dates. They could do it anytime. But it also tells you, like, after the first funnel, the Senate can only work on Senate bills, the House can only work on House bills, because that's what the focus is in getting them across to the other chamber. So it'll kind of explain, there's some weeks there rules don't apply, so you can debate as long as you want, or of course, then they do time certain. And then, do you do that in the Senate too? Time certain debate?
That has been done, more recently, when Republicans took control.
Yeah.
Before 2017, I don't remember it happening in the Senate. It might have happened once, but.
Yeah, I think that time certain is when, and it's been done a lot in the House, recently, not a decade ago. But it's where they say, we're going to stop debate at 11:59 and we will go immediately to a vote. So it's their way of keeping the minority party usually from talking an issue to death and keeping them there until 4 a.m. So they do a time certain debate. So if it's a pretty controversial issue and you've been debating it for 5 hours and you got people who want to keep debating it, too bad. They can, if you have the votes, you can time certain that and have it a vote at X whatever time. So that's something that's fairly new. So also, I'm going to do some of the easier ones. If you want to know who has Capitol days at the Capitol, you can go to the social calendar, which will include receptions that are not in the Capitol, Or you can go to the Capitol Complex events, which will show you who's going to be in the rotunda that day, who's reserved space at the Capitol for their Capitol Day. So if you go to that, and it's going to take you off to another website, but that's the same website. You can take a look at, if I go to session, you're going to see on February 11th, the Bicycle Coalition, Better Ballot Iowa, Friends of Iowa CASA, Iowa Nurses Association are all going to be at the Capitol that day. If you go to February 26th, you should see us here. There we are. That now, more frequently, what you're going to do is want to know what's going on in committee that day or in. So when you look at here, as you go down to today in chambers is the thing I think I use the most. One's House, one's Senate. So that is a daily snapshot of what's on the calendar. Now, I want to keep, if you're looking ahead, just remember legislators do things at the last minute. So they might file a committee or subcommittee meeting at 5 o'clock the night before. So you kind of have to almost look the night before or that morning to see what's on the calendar. I have gone to bed and found things on the calendar at 7 a.m. that I missed because thank goodness for Zoom now, I can at least watch them. If in the Senate, I can still testify on Zoom. But in the House, you only can watch it. But you kind of have to, it's a last minute kind of thing. So, in like today in the chambers, nothing's going to be on it because of the date we're on. But if I go to February up here, you can pick any date. That'll show you the committees that are meeting, what are canceled. And that's the link to join and watch by video. You can also do it up here, meeting live. Or here. And then these are the subcommittees. And also you can watch those. You do that by looking at the agenda and it'll have the Zoom link. You can also look at comments here. If it hasn't happened yet, you can click on a button and leave a comment. But I'm going to warn you, that is the only place you can get to the comments is from the subcommittee schedule. So I'm going to come back to that when I go to the bills, because there is a way after a subcommittee meeting to read the comments on a bill. You just have to go back to the actual day of that subcommittee to find this, to link to it. It's a pain. I have literally told the Fiscal Bureau, why can't you just put a little tab with comments where you open up the bill so I can read those while I'm reading the bill, but I'm not a legislator, so they aren't going to take my comments on that. But I will show you how to get to those, because I know a lot of people have asked me this last year how they get to the comments, and I'm like, it's not easy, so I'll show you how. But so just take a note on that, but you can submit comments online here. There'll be a way to do that before the subcommittee meets. After I don't know that you can do it afterwards. So that is the daily today in the House. If you get to one, you can quickly switch to the House that way. You don't have to go back to the main page to get to the House. You can open it all so you can see all of the agendas on there. Those will show you the bills they're planning on debating in committee. It doesn't mean they will. Sometimes it'll say, and any other bills ready. So, you don't really know which ones they'll do. In the past, legislators never used to go to caucus unless there was a real problem once they started debating a bill. Now they go to caucus no matter what at the beginning of each meeting.
Yeah.
They plan out everything before they even get. It's sad because it used to be fun to watch things go off the rails, and then everybody would have to break into caucus, and you kind of got a little insight into what the debate was going to be when they're in caucus. Now you don't even hear that publicly. You don't hear the public debate over a bill, except for where their caucus positions are usually. So that is you can pick standing committees. Those are the policy committees. You can pick the budget subcommittees. That's appropriations. I always just keep all of them clicked. You can look for just a specific committee if that's all you want. But I look at this every single morning before I get my coffee, and I'm still sitting in bed and I'm reading through the schedule to see at, 6 in the morning. If there's a 7 o'clock one I wasn't anticipating, then I'm going to be on Zoom because it takes me too long to get to the Capitol. But all of the committee meetings and all of the subcommittee meetings are on Zoom, or WebEx is what the House uses. So they're all electronic. Unfortunately, the House has chosen not to allow you to testify online. So you can only watch. The Senate, thankfully, has allowed us to continue to testify online. So if you're sick and if I'm sick and I have a really big bill I wanted to testify on, I can do it still from home. Sometimes you can't use video anymore. Sometimes you have to stay off video. Sometimes the video will only be turned on when you testify, and then it'll be turned back off because of some Zoom bombing problems that were really, really horrible. So, but they will usually go around the room, and then whoever's in the room talk, and then they'll go to those online to talk. And sometimes you don't get to talk when you're online if it's a really big issue. And the people around the room took too much time. So it's always a gamble, but usually if I'm unable to make it for one reason or another, I just tell the chair I want to speak online, and they usually make sure that I have an opportunity to do that.
These are subcommittees. This is
Yeah.
not the full committee.
Right. I'm sorry. Yes, that's subcommittee. That's the only time the public can speak is in subcommittee.
But you can still comment online.
Yes. Yeah.
Do they really read them?
I've seen people, I usually see people come to us, if you're one of the 3 people or sometimes 5 that are on the subcommittee, legislators, they will usually have a printed sheet of lobbyist registrations and then a printed sheet of comments. And I think usually staff prepare that for them. So I don't know if who does that, if it's done uniformly. I know that a fair amount of time they have that.
And from the Zoom, they let you use the chat.
I should repeat the question. Sorry. So the question was, do they really read the comments? And yes, they do. I think it's dependent on the legislator, but yes, I've seen people come with a printed out sheet of lobbyist registrations and comments. And then you said,
When you're on Zoom, you in the chat.
I'm not sure. So the question was, when you're in the Zoom, can you write? Oh, no, you cannot write in a chat function. If so, it's not being monitored. I know on WebEx, which is a weird system, there is a chat function that other people are like, hey, we can't hear you, and like the video's glitching or something like that, or they'll make other comments, but I don't think anybody sees them other than the people that are on Zoom. Usually if there's a problem with the audio, I text the staff and tell them because that's the only way to get it fixed. They're not actively, it's usually in, not interns, what do you call the high school kids?
Interns.
Huh? Pages, yes, the pages, sorry. The pages are usually the ones that are running the Zooms. So, or the systems. So they're not really.
I.e. the people who know how to work the internet.
Yeah. Which is also unfortunate when the Zoom bomb happened, because you had an underage kid seeing some really horrible things. So, but this is, I use this all the time throughout the day, all the time, the chamber meeting function, which again is under Senate and House. And then it's the Today in Chambers. You can look at the daily standing committees, 2-week standing committees, At the end of every week, they'll publish the times when a committee meets. Usually they meet at the same time on a certain day. But you can always find out which day judiciary is meeting or which day a different meeting is with that 2 week. Subcommittees on bills, it's the same as that today. It'll just show you like only the subcommittees. So I really think that today in chambers is the important one. And I will look ahead, but again, it changes.
What is the easiest way to determine or find out when the public can submit comments on bills?
Submitting comments on bills online. You kind of, it's watching that today, the subcommittee announcements. So I'll show you another way to do it too here, just real quickly. I'll go away and go under legislation. I'll come back to this page. Come on. Oh, there we go. So when you go into the bill book, where is that? Right here. That's where the bill book is, where all of the bills are. You have to know the bill number. If you don't know a bill number, you can go to the directory of legislation too and look at all of the bills. That's a list of all bills introduced. You can just read through. So like Senate File 85. This is where I said I wish they had just a little spot here where under lobbyist declarations it said comments and you could just click on it and read the comments. But you're also going to see the subcommittees get assigned here. So I think probably the easiest thing is to set up your own personal bill tracking that I showed you at the beginning under publications and subscriptions, to set it up and put the bills that are of interest there. Every time that bill changes a number, it'll tell you. Every time a subcommittee gets scheduled, it'll tell you. And then if you go to that subcommittee notice, if you click on the notice, it'll give you an opportunity to submit comments. But to find that, it's probably the easiest for you is to just sign up for that bill tracking and then put it in, because you're going to get noticed. If you have to go in and look at it, you're going to need to look at the every day's schedule to find out when those subcommittees get scheduled. You can, but if you know the bill number, just go to the bill book. You can also do it from the front page. If you're on the front page, you put in the bill number. So House File, I'm just making one up. And it will tell you, well, it will tell you, since this one, let's go back to an earlier version, it'll tell you when the subcommittee gets scheduled right here. So on the 5th, they made notice that on the next day at 8:30 in the morning, they're having a subcommittee on this bill. So, and then you can go to that date and find out. It's a little wonky. It's way better than it used to be.
A little historical. When I first came to the Senate in 2003, subcommittees did not meet.
Yeah.
I don't know what they did in the House. I didn't.
Nope, they did not.
But yeah, the subcommittee meeting constituted the chair of the subcommittee walking the bill around the chamber and getting the signatures of the other members. Well, the 2004 election, the Senate wound up tied. It was 25-25. And unlike some states, the lieutenant governor does not preside over the Senate, did not break any ties. So we didn't have any way of breaking any ties. We had co-chairs for every committee, co-chairs for every subcommittee. So I was the co-chair of local government with Doug Scholl, who represented Indianola. Really decent guy, and still a good friend of mine. We both had a background in local government. So what we said was, well, hey, we're used to dealing with constituents and hearing from them. And so we said, well, subcommittees are going to have to meet, and subcommittees meetings are going to have to be scheduled with 24 hours notice. So eventually every other committee in the Senate did adopt that. And It doubled our workload, but I also would argue it doubled the quality of our work.
Yeah.
When Republicans took over in the Senate in 2017, they did away with a 24-hour rule, but they still have subcommittees on bills. And I personally refuse to agree to a subcommittee meeting time unless it's at least 24 hours in the future. So some people, this is so that you can get your
Yeah.
extra sleep in the morning.
Well, also, sometimes the bills just have come down late and you're trying to get it through a funnel and you don't have time for that 24-hour. Typically at least the night before, they'll have it filed, but things change, things happen, meetings go long and they have to cancel and reschedule, which is also why I really like having it online, because if you were from Sioux City and drove all the way down to be at a subcommittee meeting for 15 minutes and then they canceled it, that has happened. That is just awful for a constituent. So having that option in the Senate to be able to testify, if you're a doctor, you can maybe take 15 minutes to like make a testimony and then go back to seeing your patients. Or I have psychologists, they're in such demand, to have them leave a whole day of work is hard on their bottom line, first of all, but also with patients already having long wait times. So it has really helped. But yeah, in the past, from a lobbyist perspective, I used to have to go to the subcommittee chair and then to each member to talk about the bill, each separately. And then I would see the opposite side going and talking to them. So then I'd have to go back to talk to them to refute what they were doing. And then they'd see me do that. And then they go back and it was a nightmare for them, because then they don't even want to come out and talk to you, because I know, I keep getting hit every time. So this was way more efficient to just have everybody be able to respond and have the debate and have legislators watch that debate happen in front of them.
Only good thing that came out of the pandemic.
Yeah. So, but yes, and committees, public cannot speak. So that's just you're going to watch them anyway. So, I do know sometimes the Senate committee meetings stay on video on the website. I have been able to watch a Senate subcommittee or committee that I've missed, but subcommittees are not recorded. And the House doesn't record anything. So if you miss it, you miss it. But otherwise, they are live. Also, speaking of which, during debate, you can watch live debate here on the same spot, Senate and House. So you have the audio if you just want to listen to it, or the video. And obviously, there's not going to be anything going on right now. But this is the last day. It'll have the Senate action here, and then the video over here. But if you go to the daily archive, you can watch debate from that specific day. If you know the time code of something, if you're looking for debate on a specific bill, again, going back to that bill book and on the bill that you care about. So it will have a spot. I got to find one that was actually debated. Oops. It'll have a spot here. It'll tell you the House manager, floor manager, lobbyist, just, and then House video archive and Senate video archive. So you can go on and watch debate on a bill that you're interested in if you missed it. So you just go to that bill number and you can do it again, either from that legislation bill book or from the front page, just typing in the bill number, and it'll bring up that bill. Yes. So, yeah. So we have a bill tracker for the league, or this is the other thing that I use all the time. So going back to legislation. So if you go under legislation, and this is a key one, the daily legislation, that is the old bill packet. So in the old days, We used to physically purchase for like $1,000 a session, a packet of bills that they would hand you and give you all of the bills introduced that day, all of the committee amendments and everything. Well, that obviously we don't need to waste paper like that anymore. So it's all electronic. You still can go to the Capitol and get a copy of the bill for free. Public has always been able to get bills for free at the Capitol, hard copies. The lobbyists basically supported that by paying for their bill packet, and that helped them cover all of the copying expenses. But that was done away with a decade ago. But this is every day of session. This is where all of the new bills are introduced. So you can go here every single day. So if I go back to like February 3rd, this is going to be all bills filed. This is all of the bills. Again, this is daily legislation bill packet. All of the bills introduced that day. So you can see the bill number and the sponsor. This one happens to be enrolled, so it's all done. But introduced are the ones that are enrolled, just means it's in its final form going to the governor. But introduced that's a brand new bill. So you'll see it's sequential, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92. And that is all the bills. So you can click on those bills. So if you look at it every day and you see something, you don't have to look at it every day. You can do it once a week, and at the end of the week, just go through that whole every day from that week to see if there's any bills you want to highlight. We read every bill and put it into the bill tracker. So you can also look at those. They'll be in the tracker by the next day. Usually that day we have a bill tracker that does that work for us. She lives in Idaho because she got better health insurance when living in Idaho than she did here.
So if you went up there and you just were tracking education,
Yeah.
could you put education and track your bill numbers or find your bill numbers that way?
You'll get a lot of stuff that you won't need on that way. So my other suggestion is you go to committees. So the question was, can you just type in education and it'll show you all the bills of interest? And not really. You'll end up getting anything with the word education in it. So if you go to committees, and this is where you're going to see all the committees, and this is where you'll find out who's on each committee. So let's go to judiciary. And then you'll see the committee, the people on the committee. If you go down here, you can see the subcommittee assignments for every bill that's in that committee. So which 3 members were assigned to a bill, their meetings and schedules. And over here is where you're going to find bills in committee. So if you cared about education, you would go to education and bills in committee. That will show you every bill that's in the Senate committee. If you go to the House side, it'll show you every bill that's in the House committee. Now, notice these are Senate files. Do they have study bills? No. Senate, yeah, they do. Okay, they have both study bills and so that's all the bills in committee. You can also look at bills that have come out of that committee already, bills sponsored by the committee, and that'll show you the bills that are already out and already done with. If you just wanted to look at study bills, you can do that. There's member photos, so you can see, look at there, Senator Cornbach. So that's another easy way to find that. I do that sometimes when I've lost track. Like I know there was a bill and I can't remember the bill number, and I'm like, well, I know it came out of the Health and Human Services Committee. I can find it that way. Yes.
How, you get to the place where the bill is written in legalese and then it's explained?
The explained is in our bill tracker because we take what's in legalese and we write it. There is no other way.
That's why I've said.
Well, ish. It's not very good at the
If
end.
You can find the version of the bill when it was introduced.
Yeah.
All right, the Legislative Service Agency every bill I can remember has an explanation down at the end.
Yeah, here.
Okay, now, it's relatively rare if the bill has been amended along the way, they often
Yeah.
don't, or I don't. Often don't update the
Yeah.
explanation, and often don't maybe never.
So I would have, that's where I need to sit at my, for bill.
No, our bill tracker. So the League of Women Voters bill tracker, the one that I showed you at the very beginning is where we will, our bill tracker reads every bill and then writes a plain language description.
I would still recommend looking at
Yeah.
the introduced version. If
Yeah.
it's been amended significantly along the way, then,
Yeah,
you know,
so
you may get a misimpression of that, but.
here's the version that came out of committee, and it still has the edge that, but if this were actually have been passed, it would show up pink. If it was amended by a chamber, and those definitely don't have it, but this one still does. I was trying to see if I could find a budget bill that there. So that's a pink one. It's been reprinted. And if you go to the end of that, it doesn't have the definition. So you would have to go back to the study bill. So that's the early version to go back and read it, but it's changed. So
What does he?
it's been amended by one of the chambers. So instead of changing a bill number again, after it passes out of a chamber, because it looks different than it was originally, they just changed the color to pink. And then it says reprinted. Study bills always become House files after they've been voted out of committee. So you'll never see a study bill debated by the House or the Senate because it'll already have become a House file. That's confusing to people. That's why you have to look at these versions here. Also, if there's a companion that'll be listed, like if the House has an identical version of the Senate bill, it'll show as a companion bill. I could go on and on about some of this stuff, but I don't want to bore you too much. I want to make note that under legislation here again, pre-filed bills and bill request logs. These are before session starts, legislators can ask for bills to be drafted, and those requests will show up here by the date that they were asked for. I don't see any right now, but a lot of times they mark them as confidential, so they won't show up. But if they're not marked as confidential, then they'll show up on there. But that legislation tab, I think that the two things that are here are important are this daily legislation bill packet. So you can go through and look at what's introduced every day. And then the session daily. Now, this is what's going to tell you what happened any given day. So if you go back to a session day, it will show you what got voted out of the House and what got voted out of the Senate and out of committee. Withdrawn usually means they were companion bills and one got withdrawn. Passed on file means they're putting it on the calendar. So it came out of committee and was put on the calendar or sent to the governor, vetoed by governor, signed by governor. So that's every single day you can find out what happened that day in the legislature. So I think between the things that I use the most are the bill packet and the session daily. Sometimes I do the directory of legislation. That's just every bill that was introduced in chronological order. Most everything else you can find on there. Just a moment about you can look at the House and Senate journals here, which is the official recording of everything that happened that day. But the debate eligibility calendar, so you go to the debate eligibility calendar, you have what's your regular calendar, and then you have your eligibility calendar, your daily debate calendar. So the regular calendar is all the bills that came out of committee that are ready for debate in that chamber. However, you know they're not going to debate every single one of those. So every day the leadership puts out a debate calendar, which means those are the bills they plan to debate that day. Sometimes it doesn't come out until right before debate, but like for this will be the ones. So it's a narrowed down version. It's usually 1 to 3 pages of bills versus 20 pages of bills. So that's what they're planning on debating. Doesn't mean they will, because then they'll go to caucus and decide if they have the votes to pass something or not. And if they don't have the votes in the majority party, they typically do not bring it up for debate. They require their own criteria is that they want to have all majority party members pass a bill. And if it's even close, they might pull it from the debate calendar. That's what they're planning on every day debating. So you can kind of, at the beginning of session, there's not a lot to debate, but so it might be small, or you might not have one, but those are the key. I think I got most. Oh, I was gonna say 2 other things. Lobbyist information, you can track lobbyist declarations by client or by the name of the lobbyist. You can look at function reports. Those are like if you have a reception, how much did you spend? So it is interesting to look at those function reports. They are required to be filed within a month of, I think it's 28 days of the function. Yeah. Client reports are filed annually, and that's how much a client pays their lobbyist. So also something that you might find interesting from time to time. If you're following rules, there's an explanation of the rules process, which is very good. The rules process is pretty prescriptive. It's changed a lot over the years, and you can find the code, Iowa code. If you did come across a bill that said it's striking section 28.5, you can go to the Iowa code here and then look that up. Under the Iowa code, you can look up what that section was that it's striking, if you don't have the explanation somewhere. So you'll probably use that less than we do. I follow the rules process. I look at the rules package every time to see if there's anything. But that's a little more time consuming. I think even more so than the legislative process. And then if you want to see what all got passed this year, the enrolled bills is everything that's been passed in that given year. And you can go back historically, I think pretty far back. Oh no, 2004. So I would just encourage you to go in and like ahead of session, check it out, go in, maybe save some tabs. Kind of see where things are at, and then if you have questions, let us know on how to do something. I think I will make a mental note that early in session to maybe put something together with a few highlights of where you can find things and put them on the blog. Especially like and you can go ahead and set up that individual bill tracker if you wanted to have your own smaller tracking list, because then you're going to get the notifications. So you're not going to have to go out and look for those notifications, but
it would be helpful if you can put that together like an FAQ. You know,
Oh,
what is
yeah.
the question?
yeah.
How do I find a bill if I know the name but not the number, or how do
Yeah.
I, you know?
That's a good idea. So Linda suggested that we we put together an FAQ, like with questions, commonly asked questions, like how do I find a bill number if I don't know, how do I find a bill if I don't know the number, but I know the subject or something, or that's a good idea.
I've heard different recommendations. So there's some legislation that we're encouraging people to contact the legislators. So our legislators are, of course, we want to contact them and let them know, but do we contact the head of the
Committee or subcommittee?
leaders? even though they're not, quote, our representatives.
Yeah, so the question was, they, of course, would contact, their own legislators here in the Ames area. And they may be on a committee or not be on the committee. But is it okay to contact the committee or the subcommittee? Yes, definitely the subcommittee chair and members on the subcommittee. They are not only representing their, I mean, obviously it would be fantastic if they had people in their district contact them, but they know they're looking at an issue for all of their colleagues. They're that first line. And so I feel like, especially if you have a unique perspective or story to share, that can be helpful in helping them understand the impact of the bill, I think that's really important. And I wouldn't even put it on the comment section. I would just go ahead and email them directly. And you could even say, I know I'm not a constituent, but I have been a teacher for 35 years in special education, and this bill could really, let me give you an example of how it could impact one of my kiddos or something like that. I think if you have, especially if you have a unique expertise in an area, like we don't have very many prescribing psychologists. So the 5 that are prescribing psychologists may contact people outside of their district because they have that expertise that somebody in their district might not have. And I will say also with you saw on there, it showed floor manager, contact the floor manager too, because they're the person that's going to manage to present the bill to the chamber. So if you couldn't get your comments in committee and you just saw this bill, you can let the floor manager know, or when you're emailing Senator Cornbox, ask, could you talk to Senator Brink for us? I know he's the chair, floor manager. Would you be willing to go talk to him or email them both at the same time?
The earlier you can get involved, the more chance you have. I mean, understand my last 8 years is mostly fighting against stuff. Okay, if I can talk to the subcommittee chair before the subcommittee, then I have a better chance, not always a great chance, but a better chance of having some sort of reasonable dialogue and really talking about the strengths and weaknesses of a bill. Once the debate gets out into public, the further it goes from subcommittee to committee, the more people tend to get locked in. It just becomes a lot harder. So if you have a bill that you're interested in, find the bill number, and it's not always easy, but get involved early. Just another observation or two. Don't use form letters unless you have to. I don't read form letters. I count them. I read the first one. Okay, after that, okay. If you can tell a personal story, some experience you've had, somebody you know, some relatives who's affected by this, etc., that is probably most likely to be influential. Citing statistics is useful, but telling stories is better. It pains me to say that because I'm a data guy, but in terms of how to persuade, if you've got a story, if your mom went through this kind of medical procedure and it was awful and, she didn't get the right advice or didn't, whatever, that kind of story is more likely to be effective. Always be polite when you talk to legislators. Always be polite, even if you hate their guts, even if you think they are evil incarnate. Always be polite. Being impolite doesn't get you anywhere.
Yep.
And I find that there is just last observation. Generally, people who I talk to, and for me, the best way to communicate is to call me at home. All right, emails and stuff, yeah, okay, but two-way dialogue. But whether it's by email or by phone call, two groups of people who want to talk with me and people who want to talk at me. I will listen to both, okay? But it's a lot more productive to talk with somebody, to have a give and take, and if you're doing that, try to find a set of common values. You know, try to take the issue apart, go all the way back to the foundational values. And if you can find a set of common values to build from, that is a much more productive discussion, at least I find.
Yeah, I always, you know, if you see me testify, I usually start off with the positive on a bill and then I work on what it needs to be improved. So we've got the FAQs. Are there other things that we can do to make this easier for you?
I would mean that.
Yeah,
Oh, to find it.
to find the bill, yeah. You could ask AI, like, find an Iowa bill introduced in the 2026 session that deals with clean water, and you might get a list of those.
Oh.
Hopefully we will have tracked most of them. I'm going to tell you that sometimes there are just so many bills for the league. We have to like cut it off somewhere. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's like if a late bill comes out sponsored by Senator Cornbach and all of his colleagues, and it came out and it's not going to go anywhere, we might not put it in the tracker. Sorry. So there are going to be bills that you're going to see introduced. It may not be in the tracker just because unless it's like spot on with our priorities, we will always include it. But if it's a really great bill idea for universal health care, it's not going to go anywhere. Maybe it came out like 2 weeks before the funnel, which is usually what happens, or came out after the funnel because it didn't get drafted in time. We might not put it in the tracker, but you can always ask us why it's not there. I mean, if people really want it in there, it becomes really like we have hundreds of bills in there now, and that's just the focused ones that we think are going somewhere, let alone everything else. So
Ann and I were talking a week ago, and she said that we should address a letter to a legislator or a senator with a direct yes or no answer from them.
No,
Well, somewhat.
I don't know about yes or no, but instead of, what I see is a lot of people writing their opinions to people like Senator Cornbrough. I'm not, he didn't, that's fine, but I'm interested in their opinion. So X, Y, or Z bill, what do you think this bill will do to children law? Okay, or how do you see this bill affecting X? I mean, I wanna know what they're thinking.
So the suggestion was writing a letter to a legislator asking that not only do you want to hear they want to hear the constituents' opinion, but the constituents want to hear their opinion on a bill. And I don't know if, depending on the legislator, I don't know if you're going to get any answer.
Well, I think a non-answer is
Yeah.
as informative as an answer in some ways.
I can tell you
Takes work for that to do.
it's hard. Yeah. And then they're on the record.
In the absence of media, in the absence of more and more media, who tells us, I mean, they're thinking about a bill is of interest to me. It just seems to me sitting on quad that if you don't know what they're thinking, what the use is the whole process.
Yep.
What's the use of democracy in the absence of knowing what your elected representative thinks about a bill?
Well, and I do think I know that there were special education teachers or parents that had kids in special ed during the AEA change. And I know several of them they were from Skylar Wheeler's area, Representative Wheeler's area, and he was the head of education. And they wrote him and said, here's the situation with my kiddo. This is what the services they get. Can you please tell me how I'm hearing from both sides that this is going to be really bad or really good. I don't know what to think. Can you explain it to me? And he actually did sit down with a group of them to talk it through. He himself has kids that have a special needs. And so he kind of explained it to them. Now, whether they ended up agreeing with him on the impact or not, but they did have that conversation. There are others, I don't know that you're gonna get an answer unless they're really involved in that. A lot of times, if it's an issue you're not on a committee with, you may not really, you're relying on your colleagues to help. But I would guess most of this, I used to be on staff. That's usually a lot of what staff would do, is write a response like that.
Well, I just wanted
Yeah.
to bring that up, because I thought it was an interesting, how we don't have media coverage anymore.
Yeah. I mean, there's also, you can watch like Starting Line or Bleeding Heartland or The Standard, depending on your political tilt. I'll read both because I find information on both of them that I don't find anywhere else in traditional media. I also get the Capital Dispatch, which is wonderful. If you don't get those services, subscribe. They have great coverage of things.
I was late and I apologize for that, so you may have already hit this, but I was just curious who your other clients are. I assume you're the Disabilities Iowa or some other.
Yeah, yeah. We have a bunch. Let me see if I can pull, if it'll show it when I,
And may I assume they're compatible with
yes.
league priorities?
Yeah. I don't know. We rarely have conflicts. And I think it's because we tend to focus on community-based organizations or professional licensing organizations, but like AARP, the Area Agencies on Aging. I have 3 home and community-based services providers to people with disabilities. I work with the Iowa DD Council, Developmental Disabilities Council, but I don't lobby for them. I can't because I am funded by federal funds. So I do their advocacy work. I just do I keep track of their bills. I write nonpartisan newsletters and help with trainings and stuff like that, but I can't. Huh?
You monitor.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
legislative body.
And then we have 3 nurse groups, 3 advanced practice nurse groups, the nurse practitioners, certified nurse midwives, pediatric nurse practitioners, and then the Nurses Association. We do Natural Heritage Foundation, and the County Conservation Boards, which always has similar views as the League on Water Quality. The Library Association, intellectual freedom's huge for them, so very aligned. Primary Care Association, so they are the federally qualified health centers. So Primary Care Inc. has a location up here in Ames. Psychologists, Public Transit Association. Yeah, Lutheran Services in Iowa, On With Life, which is a brain injury facility. Prevent Child Abuse Iowa, I only monitor for them. We just took on Refugee and Immigrant Voices in Action. It's used to be Embark, but they've kind of broken off. Really, their focus was on job training programs and AmeriCorps programs that they had. So SafeNet RX sounds like it's a pharmaceutical company, but they are actually the drug donation program for the state, where if you're in a nursing home, you die, you have, blister packs of unused medication, they ship it to them, they check for the quality, and then they give it back out for free to people that can't afford it. So they just entered a new partnership with Nebraska. So it'll be the first multi-state one. Iowa's program was the first to come out. And so they've rebranded their name to SafeNet RX because they do other stuff they also do all of the drug disposal. Like when you go to the pharmacy and you drop off unused medications, it goes to their facility to dispose of. So it's a great program. And I don't get paid for them. I do it volunteer. That's my pro bono piece. Does anybody online have any other questions? Just stop my sharing.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
I know you talked about how public can make comments. What is the easiest way to find when there is a bill or subcommittee bill that people can make comments on?
That would be going to that, today in the House or today in the Senate.
Okay,
And that's under the House Senate tab. That's where you're gonna see the whole list of them.
okay.
It'll have the links to join right there. And it's only subcommittees. You can't comment in committees. You can watch, but you can't comment. So, also only in the Senate can you comment online. But if you're local and you want to come to the Capitol, in the House, and I'm going to work more on that comment section. I'll have to, it's so, I was trying to find comments after the fact, and I had to go back to the bill, look at what day the subcommittee was held in their bill history, and then go back to that section that has the today in the Senate, go back to that date, and then go back to find the comments there. So it's really hard to find the comments after the day of the subcommittee. And I think that should be improved, but
Well, it seems like it's hard to know when you can submit comments before the committee has had its hearing.
yeah, I think the best way is to find out who's on that subcommittee, which will be listed when you
Okay.
bill, and just email them directly. All of under the legislator tab is where you find all of the legislator emails. And if you go to you type in the bill number, or you link to anytime you click on the bill, even if it's when it's announcing the subcommittee, it'll have the list of members who are on that subcommittee, and then you can just email them. I would just email them directly rather than do the comment, since it's so hard to find it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I will definitely put that in the FAQs too. I think that's good.
Well, thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
And, this has been recorded